just reached level 10 in the Burning Crusade Classic Anniversary, and somehow we were already completely broke. No proper bags, no mount, no money, just a Tauren Druid, a dream, and the decision-making skills of someone who thinks jumping off Thunder Bluff counts as travel planning. Today, we meet our first rare enemy, Mazranach, unlock bear form, craft our first bags, and still end up too poor to fly from Thunder Bluff to Camp Tarajo. So we walk. Welcome to the real fresh character experience. After reaching level 10, our journey finally started to feel serious. Not because we were powerful, not because we had great gear, and definitely not because I suddenly knew what I was doing. It felt serious because the Burning Crusade Classic Anniversary looked at us and said, "Congratulations, you are now old enough to suffer properly." We had almost nothing. A few random items, barely any copper, tiny bags, no mount, and enough confidence to make several terrible decisions in a row. So the plan was simple. Travel to Thunder Bluff, train what we need, maybe buy some bags, and start the Druid quest for bear form. Basically, we wanted to become a real character, or at least something slightly less embarrassing than a broke Tauren with pockets full of wolf meat. So we started running through Mulgore, no mount of course, because mounts are for rich people, and we were currently operating on a budget of 63 copper and misplaced confidence. But honestly, Mulgore almost makes you forget how poor you are. Almost. Open plains, peaceful music, giant mesas in the distance. A perfect place to reflect on nature, balance, and why my inventory was already full after killing 3 mobs. And then we saw it. Our first rare enemy, Mazranach. A majestic pink bird walking through Mulgore like it owned the entire zone. So naturally I attacked it immediately, not because I was greedy. This was research. Very serious, very professional loot research. And somehow it actually paid off. We got a chess piece, with +1 agility, +1. An upgrade so powerful, our Tauren became almost slightly better at existing. Was it huge? No. Did I act like we just looted a legendary item? Absolutely, because when you start from 0, +1 agility is not just a stat, it is hope, very small, leather-covered hope. After our legendary victory against the Pink Bird of Destiny, we finally reached Thunder Bluff, the great Tauren capital, spiritual, peaceful, beautiful, and apparently built by someone who thought elevators needed boss mechanics. Our first visit went exactly as you would expect. We trusted the elevator, gravity disagreed, and our level 10 Druid was defeated by public transportation. So we set our Hearthstone in Thunder Bluff immediately, not because I had some advanced route planned, but because I clearly could not be trusted to move around the city without creating another corpse run. Then it was time to solve the real fresh character problem, bags. So we went to the auction house. We found a 6-slot bag for 19 silver and 98 copper. For a brief moment, it almost felt possible. Then I looked at our money, 13 silver and 70 copper, so we closed the auction house and accepted the truth. If we could not buy bags, we would have to make them ourselves, which meant training skinning and leatherworking, because apparently our first profession goal was not profit, it was basic storage. With our storage problem temporarily solved by denial, it was time for something actually important, bear form. This was the big one. The moment where our Tauren Druid finally becomes what this journey was always meant to be, a bear. Because up until now, calling this channel ThiccBear felt slightly fraudulent. We picked up the Druid class quest in Thunder Bluff and began the sacred tradition of early classic gameplay, running. A lot of running. Classic World of Warcraft does not simply hand you bear form. No, it sends you across the world first, just to make sure you really want it. And with no mount, every road felt personal. But after enough walking to make my hooves question their life choices, we finally reached Lunaclaw, the great trial, the dramatic fight, the moment our Druid would prove himself worthy. And then, he died almost instantly. Thanks to the Fire Festival buff, Lunaclaw went down so fast it barely looked like a class quest. This was supposed to be a spiritual challenge. Instead, it looked like we accidentally hit him with a truck. But I will take it. At this point, I needed all the help the game was willing to accidentally give me. After the world's least dramatic class trial, we returned to Thunder Bluff, and finally, we unlocked bear form. This was a huge moment. Not financially, of course, we were still broke, but emotionally, spiritually, brand-wise, massive upgrade. Now, every terrible decision we made could be made with extra armor, which is exactly the kind of progress I was looking for, but Mulgore was not finished yet. We still had quests to complete, enemies to hunt, and a few loose ends before leaving for the Barrens, so we needed to get back down from Thunder Bluff. A normal player would use the elevator. But I looked over the edge and thought, that looks like a shortcut. It was not a shortcut. It was a vertical funeral. At this point, I am starting to think the biggest threat in the game is not the enemies. It is me being allowed to control the character. After surviving another completely avoidable death, we returned to Mulgore to finish what we started. We still had quests to complete, rewards to collect, and apparently more rare enemies waiting for us on the road, which sounds impressive. But honestly, at this point my route was less of a plan, and more of a distracted cow following anything with a silver dragon portrait. Still, it worked. We found rare enemies, we killed them, we collected more random drops, and for a brief moment, it almost looked like we knew what we were doing. Almost. Then it was time for what felt like the final boss of our Mulgore chapter. Arachea, a giant Kodo, a proper target, a real beast to close out the zone. And after the fight, we received something truly powerful. Pants. But not just any pants, plus 4 agility pants. 4 agility. At this point, our druid had gone from barely functional to almost respectable from a distance. This was not just gear. This was progress. This was fashion. This was the first time our character looked slightly less like someone who lost a fight with a vendor trash bin. And honestly, I will take it. With Mulgore finally wrapped up, it was time to fix one last problem before leaving: bags. Because our inventory had been suffering since the beginning of this journey, and honestly, so had I. We could not afford them on the auction house, so we did the only thing a broke fresh character could do. We made them ourselves. After all the skinning, running, dying, and financial embarrassment, we finally crafted our first bags. They were not huge, they were not impressive, but they were ours, and for a broke Tauren Druid, that felt like luxury. So there we were, bear form unlocked, slightly better gear, new handmade bags, almost looking like a real character. It was time for the next chapter, the Barrens. The plan was simple. Fly from Thunder Bluff to Camp Tarajo, fast, clean, professional. And then the flight master asked for 99 copper. We had 63. After everything we had done, we were still too poor for a 99 copper flight. So we did what every legendary hero does at the start of a great adventure. We walked, no mount, no money, barely any dignity, just a fresh bear, handmade bags, and a dream. Next time, the real hustle begins. The Barrens. Long roads, gold problems, dangerous pulls, and probably more decisions that would make a normal player log out. Subscribe if you want to follow the journey from zero to Outland, and I will see you in the next chapter.